Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today, let's have a little talk. Now this might be a little blunt, or it might be whatever you want to call it, but I've seen this on Facebook, Instagram, and it's about the EPA. Now, the legislation that they're using is all the way back from the 1970s. Now, I did a lot of research last night after I got into a semi-heated Facebook, rant from some guy. It's the Clean Air Act. Now, it has been amended several times, but what I found very interesting about the Clean Air Act is that when I looked at how it got voted on by Congress, so that'd be the House of Representatives and the Senate, it was one of the most bipartisan legislations that I've certainly been around with, especially in today's world. Now, back then, I don't think the left and the right was very, I don't know if it was as polarized as it is today because of social media and the media. And this isn't really a political debate. Just so we're all clear, H&S got hit under the Obama administration. A lot of diesel shops, tuners and stuff got hit under the Trump administration, and now shop owners, tuners, and users are getting hit under the Biden administration. So I don't really feel like this is a Democratic versus Republican argument. Now, I would say that a majority of diesel owners, enthusiasts do probably fall on the right side of the aisle, and that's fine. However, this legislation came about due to environmental concerns. Like, people were having trouble breathing, they were having trouble with acid rain, and it was a big environmental problem. I went to school in California when I got out of the Marine Corps, and I talked to some of my tech teachers that had lived there, and they remembered that time period where the smog was really bad. Now, before you guys click off here and be like, wow, this guy's a liberal, this, that, or the other, my political opinion doesn't matter for this video, but all I'm saying is to put it in perspective, like, it was a huge problem back then, and I feel like the steps that got taken then really did help preserve the air quality of the world, not just America. And also, I understand you have countries like India, China, a lot of those Asian countries, and also you get into some of the Eastern European countries. I understand that we are certainly not the biggest polluters in the world, and I get it. I'm not talking about the Paris Climate Accord. Like, I understand a lot of this scenario because I just keep getting madder and madder about this topic, and it really doesn't help at all. So what I did was I just started researching it, and I would encourage you guys all to do the same, and I think it might change your perspective a little bit on this. Now, for reference, I have been in this as a career now for over 5 years. I have been an enthusiast for well over 15 years. I have 2 kids. I'm married. Like, my business revolves around diesel motorsports, diesel repair. So, like, just understand where I'm coming from on this. When you look at what they were trying to do, you can read it many different ways, and I feel like lawyers have a heyday with this. And I listened to a couple of podcasts, which I'd suggest you check out. The Diesel Podcast had on Corey Willis, Ryan Milliken. The Diesel Power Podcast, which is hosted by Calibrated Power, had on a couple of shop owners that have gotten dinged. And I highly suggest you guys check those out, give them a listen. What I am suggesting is all of these guys that have gotten caught all have the exact same thing. Stop it. Now, you're talking about multi-million-dollar businesses. I mean, Ryan was kind enough to share a $5 million gross business that revolved around emissions defeat stuff, and he owned it. Like, say what you want to about Ryan Milliken, that to me is highly respectful, just giving us all the facts. He didn't try to hide behind it. He owned it, and I give him a lot of respect and credit for that. But when you guys think about the automotive side of the Clean Air Act. Yes, I believe it is a very smaller portion compared to the industrial stuff, the power plants and things like that. And I see the argument every time about how electrical vehicles and stuff is bad and how solar power and all that stuff, and I get it. I understand the rolling brownouts when I lived in California. Like, I get everyone's point, but I guess my opinion is we have tried this same worn out argument for over 8 years now, and it has gotten us in a bigger hole than when we started. It has really kind of radicalized us as a group of individuals, and I don't feel like we'll ever win. And I just want to be clear, I don't think we will ever go back to the early 2010 era, late 2000s era ever again. And I feel like the guys that are trying to get there, you're wasting your time. Like, it's never going back. And I think there's a good-ish reason for it. I feel like a lot of people want to build, like, they just want to delete their truck. The sound, the smoke, whatever. And guys, I get it. Like, I am also part of the problem. Like, yes, I have driven deleted trucks. Yes, I have blown smoke when I was younger, and even probably into my early 20s. But for those of you guys that are new, like, staying clean on the street is something that I have not only tried to preach a little bit, but I've also tried to practice with the black truck, with the DDP truck, cleaning up the idles, making them start right, making them go down the drag strip clean, sled pull track clean. Like, I just want you guys to understand, like, I do try to practice what I preach. And if you own a deleted truck, like, I get it. They sound awesome. They perform a little bit better, and I get it. But I feel like we are all super naive if we think we are going back to that era. It's gone. Like, Ryan said it the best. The stuff that's out there now is garbage anyway. They don't fit right. The downpipes tear welds. The exhausts don't even line up. The block-off plates suck. The hardware's Chinese garbage. Like, it's not good stuff. And the tuning out there, for the most part, is garbage as well. Guys, just shut all the DTCs off on there and let your truck go. Whereas, like, for instance, with me, with my 221 pickup trucks, they had factory defuels to keep the engine alive, the trans alive, a lot of things that are built in that get shut off when you delete it. And I get it. I've had an emissions failure on a brand new truck. I understand that the emission system is not perfect, and I understand that the supply chain really sucks. Now, from what I'm seeing, it seems like it's getting a little better on emissions products, and it's not perfect. And I'm not saying that at the end of the day, it's your truck, you can do what you want, but I also just want to caution you guys, like, it's still illegal. Like, and it's been illegal this whole time. They just now are really breathing down our necks. So where do I think we go from here? I mean, I was in this debate with this guy about it's his personal property, and something he said really stuck out to me, and it was, if you said what you said in that Facebook post back in the 1700s when we were throwing tea in there, you're pathetic. And I got to thinking about it, and I'm like, America was mad as a colony because we had taxation without representation. An argument that I will still say, I feel like my taxes aren't always spent the way I want to. I get it. Like, there's a lot of social programs that I don't agree with. I don't like my tax dollars getting sent to foreign countries. Like, I get it. But the Clean Air Act got voted on, and it's been amended and voted on, and through its history, it has carried 70% support from my rough math of how it got voted on in Congress, being the Senate and the House. And it's been signed, it got signed into law, or got debated on under Nixon. It's been amended with Reagan. I believe Clinton amended it. I think some amendments happened under George Bush. There's a lot of information out there, but you guys get my point. Like, Republican, Democrat, it doesn't seem to be an issue. And I think the issue that we're running into is the application of it. If you want to fight this battle, then fight it the way that Corey Willis and Ryan Milliken are talking about. You guys got to fight it smart. Like, I love firearms. I am a proud Second Amendment supporter. I own firearms. I use them. I carry them. Like, I'm with you, but let's be real here. Nobody in their right mind is going to have 10 heavily armed with body armor agents bust into their home or their shop and you're going to open fire. Like, I would say 99.9% of shop owners, homeowners, like, we're not doing that. And maybe you guys think we should. I'm going to be honest. If they come into our shop or they come into my home, like, I'm not risking the lives of the people that are here, the property that's here, my partner's life, just to make a stand. And you can call me weak, you can call me whatever you want. I'm just talking from my realistic standpoint. So maybe we drop that from the argument of, you show up to my house armed, I'm gonna match you. Like, that's not how this gets solved. We live in a world where social media and the media are such a constructive or destructive entity depending on how they're used. And Corey Willis shares everything, tags all his congressmen, his senator, and tries to bring attention to it in that light, and then other people share it. And I guess where I'm going with this is you have to fight it somewhat the way that's more acceptable today. Like, maybe we're headed for a civil war, who knows? But just talking about emission systems and stuff, like, we need to fight the battle of 49 state versus CARB. And I think that's where this argument is won. Right now, the EPA is using the California Air Resource Board as a benchmark for emissions testing. And it's not just for diesels, by the way, guys. This is happening with motorcycles, cars, all that stuff. But that's the benchmark. And what Corey and Ryan are talking about is, why does one state dictate the other 49? And that is an argument that we can win as a community. And I'm not saying that we're going to be able to delete our trucks or buy delete pipes and stuff like that, but that is how we're going to be able to continue on with this diesel industry, is the 49 state battle. And that's where I think we need to invest a lot more time, energy, finances, if you have it, in the 49 state program. You have amazing stuff out there with the SEMA Garage that does the testing for you. They have a somewhat affordable fee to get your products tested to get that 49 state compliance. And then if you want to sell stuff into California, then you need to go in front of the California Air Resource Board. And that's, I feel like, our real solution to the problem, is going for the 49 state. And just realizing that if you want to build a race truck, I don't think the EPA, Joe Biden, the Democratic Party, I don't think they care about your race truck. I really don't. I don't think they care about the DDP truck. I don't think they even really care about my black truck, to be honest, because realistically, it gets trailered most places. And if I do have fun with it, it's out in the middle of nowhere where nobody's gonna bother me. We need to stop rolling coal on Prius and Tesla owners. You definitely need to stop dumping it all over the sidewalk where people are at. I saw on TikTok the diesels of New York. They're driving around New York City rolling coal. Like, I try to put myself in their shoes, and maybe when I was that young, maybe I was that dumb, but like, somebody needs to realize how stupid that is. Like, that's never gonna win the argument there, especially in that place. Like, go do it out in Poughkeepsie or somewhere like way upstate. Go have fun. You know, we screw around right here on this frontage road right here. You can't see it from the highway. There's not a house for over a couple of miles. There's no traffic. There's a gravel plant right there. Like, that's where Dave and I like to have our fun, or we do our little videos for you guys. There's this little turnabout right here, and we go up and down the road. Nobody gets hurt. Nobody calls the cops. Nobody cares. A prime example of that is the Shy Diesel after party. They did it out in a field and nobody cared. The cops never like came in Well, I think actually the cops did come in, but I'm pretty sure there was like I think it was like underage drinking or something. But anyway, they didn't shut it down because of diesel trucks blowing black smoke. So I feel like we need to understand the environment you're in and understand that race trucks are meant to be race trucks. And if you want a street truck, you're gonna either need to go to pre-emissions for now. I think they'll leave that alone. But if we keep poking that bear, they're gonna come for that too. Because if you read the Clean Air Act, like Ryan Milliken said, you change your tires, your wiper, or maybe it was Corey Willis, tires, wiper blades, brakes, transmissions. Like technically that could all be a violation of that law, but there's this gray area there where it doesn't seem, what I believe Ryan used the term realistic results or realistic expectations. Like if you put a transmission in, I doubt it's really gonna change the emissions output of a truck. Just like, I mean, honestly, I feel like wheels and tires would probably have more of an emissions impact than a transmission would, but there is no quote unquote law on the book. And for those of you guys that have completely missed this video and you think I'm an idiot or whatever, that's fine. I hope you guys register your trucks because, you know, I mean, if we want to be that illegal, like, do you register it? Do you insure it? Do you get your state inspections? You know, that's how ridiculous this has kind of gotten. Like, at the end of the day, it's really cool on Facebook to sound like you're Bonnie and Clyde or, you know, some kind of outlaw. But at the end of the day, I know everyone that's saying this stupid stuff, they pay their taxes. They run, for the most part, they pay a road tax on their fuel. They pay registration, they pay insurance, everything else the law says you have to do. It's like guys with lifted trucks. Yeah, they complain. They either take the ticket like men, or they lower the bumper, add headlights, whatever the case may be. But like, if this is really the sword you want to die on, like, how about we stop paying registration? Like, I always think that's dumb. So I gotta pay to use the roads that my tax dollars already pay for. Like, the logic there just doesn't make sense. And for me, like, I'll own my portion of it. I was there, I was young, I've done it, but like my generation and the generation before mine, we ruined it. And now the younger generation keeps on ruining it. So we need to just suck it up as a community and just clean up our act, literally. You can have 700-800 horsepower and it still burn really clean. You can have emissions on 600 horsepower stuff. Ryan Milliken's got 540 out of a bone stock emissions on truck. And I feel like when the market does finally change, and it's going to, whether you like it or not, emissions on products are gonna fly off the shelves. I mean, we have 700 horsepower Hellcats, we have SUVs that make the same power, we have 500 horsepower naturally aspirated cars, we have mid-engine, like, I look at like the Corvettes and stuff, like those are all emissions compliant vehicles and they stay within that even at a racetrack factory. And that is impressive, and I feel like the best days of diesel are still ahead of us. I feel like the racing side will still always be there. Like if the EPA walked in to our shop right now, we have documentation of a truck that came in deleted. I have the mileage, I have what it's here for, how I fixed it, and a picture of how it came to protect us. If they came for the DDP truck, because technically I believe that was a 6-7 truck, I'm gonna make the argument of, I don't drive this on the street. Do you believe me? And I think a realistic expectation of a government agent is they're gonna take one look at that race truck and be like, yeah, damn, that's not a street truck. If you have a truck with a 850 roll cage in it and gutted bedsides and everything else, they're probably gonna believe that that's a race truck. The issue that we're gonna run into, and this is where I think another part of our battle needs to be, is how do you stay within the legal bounds of property ownership without just registering your vehicle? It's the same problem I had with my 05. I don't know how Lenny does the DDP truck because I know Idaho's different, but like in Utah, there was no way for me to register a truck or keep ownership of a truck without having insurance and registration. So I had to pay to get my tags renewed, and I had to pay insurance, or else the state would fine me for having that vehicle. So I think that's another thing that we need to really hound our representatives on, is the guys that do have race trucks, pull trucks, dyno queens, whatever. How do we maintain ownership and maintain the standard of the law with a truck that had a VIN number? I think that's a great argument that we need to make on that. And I love this stuff, guys. It's my passion, it's my hobby, it's what I do for work every day. You can ask Dave, I spend way too much time here. Ask my wife, I've spent way too much money and time on this. Like, this is what I love to do. I just wanted to put out a video and kind of come at it from a less emotional, more of a common sense point of view. So I feel like we need to fight the California Air Resource Board overreach and letting the EPA use it as a crutch. That's number one. Number two, we either need to decide if you're gonna have a race truck or a street truck. And if that street truck had emissions, you gotta keep it on there. And I think if the government came down and started confiscating them, like, it's really gonna suck. And there is not enough people that are willing to die on that sword. Let's be realistic. Like I said, everyone talks tough on social media, but in person, the follow through is not gonna be there. So I feel like on the newer trucks, like, leave the emissions on. If you have a failure, well, you bought a truck with emissions on it. The law has been on the books now for 40 years. Like, there are consequences to your actions. It's like people that buy BMWs and they're shocked at why they break down under 100,000 miles. It's the guy that buys the Lamborghini or the Ferrari. Those are, $300,000-$400,000 vehicles. The maintenance is insane on them. Diesel trucks, $80,000 to $120,000 now. There's a realistic expectations of those maintenance requirements. So when you go and buy them like that, try to think of the whole picture. Like, it's not just oil changes and fuel filters. Like, yeah, we're gonna have to have our DPFs baked out. Those services are popping up. I feel like one of a more lucrative businesses is if you had an oven that could bake the DPFs. I feel like you could make a fortune doing that, because a lot more people are leaving them on. I remember, probably 6 years ago, or right when I moved to Utah, there wasn't an emissions truck around. I was surprised. I was like, damn, like, coming from Southern California to this, I was like everything was deleted. You just turbo whistles and sha-ta-ta-tas and smoke everywhere. And when I left Power Driven and I started my own shop, like, that number had drastically decreased. The emissions off stuff was very rare, and you just heard diesel trucks drive by and you heard a little bit of turbo and maybe a little exhaust sound, and there was no smoke. And Utah is not even where I lived. They didn't even have emissions testing. So you guys can see where the market's going. I don't think they'll come after racing, and if they do, I will be on the forefront of that. I don't believe the RPM Act is ever going to get us to where you can buy race parts for your on-highway. The RPM Act, if you actually read it, I can do a whole nother video on the RPM Act. I believe it's important, but it's not what everyone on Facebook's making it out to be. It is not going to allow you to have delete pipes and stuff like that. For our third thing, I believe we need to quantify race parts. And this is something that Ryan Milliken brought up, and I think it was a very intelligent statement. You don't know the magical number of when you become a delete parts manufacturer versus a race parts manufacturer. And like Ryan said, like, is it 5? Is it 25? Is it 1,000? Like, where does it end? So I believe, like, moving forward, if anybody from the government watches this, like, we need to quantify that. It's like anything you do. If I tell somebody to just work, everyone's first question is going to be like, what am I doing? How long am I doing it for? Well, if nobody ever quantifies that, you just, okay, here's one EGR block off plate. Okay, here's a Banks Monster Ram with no EGR port. Okay, here's a 5-inch straight pipe. and then here's a set of race injectors. Oh, $100,000 fine. So I got no warning about the other 3 parts, and then all of a sudden they ruin your life. And I think the last thing that we really need to do is, as a community, we need to hold each other accountable. You guys will see me post on Facebook or Instagram. I'll be like, damn, that's a lot of smoke or whatever. Like, and some of it's just me being a smart aleck, but I do mean it. I look at ODSS. I was at Shy. We have Pro Street, Super Street, or Pro Street, Pro Mod, Dragster. With the exception of one Pro Mod, they're all super clean. Super, super clean. It's not my fault that that one Pro Mod decided to use a terrible injection system that just smokes like a freight train. And then I look at 590, super clean. I look at 670, 770, oh my God. ET, arguably the worst class for smoke. So again, you look at it, we're trying to promote this clean diesel argument, and the classes that have very few trucks, even 590, a lot of those guys are still factory ECM. They've ran super, super clean. And then we get down to all these trucks that have license plates on them, and they're blowing just tons of soot. Now, I am super happy to watch all those small classes or the lower power stuff grow, and I love that everyone comes out to the races, because that's where you need to have fun. But just looking at where the industry's at, you know, 5 years ago, all the low classes were still smoky, and Pro Street, Pro Mod, all those, like, it was, you couldn't even tell the scoreboard. And now 5 years later, you can watch the whole race from spool up all the way to the end, and it's super clean. And I look at all the low classes, and they're still really smoky. So I feel like we have a long way to go there. And we need to watch what we post on Facebook and Instagram, TikTok, whatever social media app you're on. We need to be more cognizant of that. Guys, I love rolling burnouts. I love boosted launches. I love whipping around in parking lots and stuff. But we need to be careful about doing it in a residential area. We need to stop doing it on a crowded highway and stuff like that. Like, we need to use a little bit of common sense to exercise the horsepower that you have, I guess is the way to do it. Like I said, prime example, when I worked in Utah, there were all these back roads. There's nothing to hit. I go into somebody's cornfield, or I hit a tree. At the end of the day, that only affects my life or whoever's strapped in the truck. When you do a highway pole and there's traffic and you break the rear tires loose, you just put a lot more people's lives at risk. A lot more people are gonna be irritated. Write down your license plate, call the cops. Like, we need to be smart. And when you're doing drag racing test hits, I know everyone has done a street hit, myself included. I'm not innocent either, but I didn't do it on a residential road. I remember when I worked at PDD, I had this one guy ask me for a sponsorship. I went onto his Instagram and I watched him do a 4-wheel drive street hit in a residential area during daylight, and I saw a mom and probably an infant in a stroller on the sidewalk. Like, that is a stupid move. And obviously we didn't sponsor that guy. That's totally irresponsible. And I get that I'm now the old guy or whatever, but like, a lot of the people that make these decisions for our industry are the old guys. So maybe we need to start looking through it with their lens. So again, guys, I apologize if this video is long-winded. For those of you guys that stuck around, drop in the comments what you think, what's your opinion. I would probably refrain from posting F the EPA in my comment section. I really just want this video to reach a lot of people, and maybe my voice is a little bit more reasonable for how we fight this. Again, we're never going back to that. If they have it their way, we're gonna be over here. What we need to do is stay kind of in the middle. And instead of highlighting electric vehicles' impacts on the environment, let's talk about the benefits of diesel in general. And I think the future of on-highway stuff, like, eventually the battery cars are gonna get there. Nissan Leafs, they used to get less than 90 miles on a charge. Now an electric car, you can go 300 miles. some of those Teslas, I believe even 400 or 500 miles. That's really cool. And then you got that Ford Lightning truck that only made 65 miles towing. Yes, that does suck. It's one of their first ones. In 4 years, that might be 300 miles towing. We don't know. But we can't just be like, this is terrible for the environment, because at the end of the day, so is our stuff with all the black smoke and everything else to them. We need to meet in the middle. And I think one of the biggest things that the technology I want to see is what they've been doing in locomotives. And I would highly suggest you check out Edison Motors. It's a guy up in Canada that put a diesel engine in front of a generator and acts as a generator for an electric semi-truck. I think that is one of the best technologies that we can bring today to ease the electric, just the straight electric vehicles, is that. And I feel like sharing all of the electric car failures, that's fine. Go for it. You guys want to show the picture of the Tesla with the generator mounted on the bike rack or whatever? That's fine. Let's bring more awareness to what can happen with these vehicles. But we need to do that, and we also need to stop posting black smoke just pouring out in residential areas and everything else. If it's in a competition setting, have at it. My last piece of advice for you guys, or two pieces, take your license plates off when you're at a competition. If you're dirt dragging, sled pulling, dynoing, take them off. It makes you harder to find, harder to track down. Do that. And then the last thing is that New Jersey guy that's getting his truck crushed. This is how I got into that Facebook argument that really sparked me making this video. Now their solution is to just make 100, they want everyone to make a deleted truck ad in New Jersey. And they're like, oh, it'll be funny, blah, blah, blah. Number one, you're wasting tax dollars, which they already waste enough anyway, so let's not do that. Number two, you're just radicalizing our side even more, making it a lot harder to, come to an agreement. It's the same thing as I deal with my wife. Like, my wife is much more emotional than I am. That's fine. That's one of the reasons why it works. We balance each other out. But I understand that there are certain topics that I can't go into if my wife is upset or if she feels disrespected. She's not gonna absorb any of that information. If you guys have girlfriends or moms or anything, any kind of female figure, they are powerful people, but they are also far more emotional than men are. And if we don't respect that side of them, you'll never get any kind of resolution there. And we need to treat this situation the same way. The people that want to take diesel away, they are extremely emotional people. Men, women, the whole group. They're a very, very emotional group. They listen to all the things on the media and stuff like that. We're never gonna get there if we can't come to them level-headed and less radical, where, and it's not just diesel. I mean, you look at it with firearms and you look at it with the freedom of speech, like all these things. Like, I'm not saying we have to cater to them. Some of those people are very weak members of society. I'm there with you. But we also need to understand that this country is one where you vote for representatives. Those representatives represent you in the government and stuff like that. And if you really want to win this, we need to change who you vote for. Find out all these political guys' campaigns. And I understand politics is ugly. There's a lot of lying and backstabbing and everything else. But eventually we will find candidates that truly believe in what we're doing and want the automotive aftermarket to continue to grow or be supported. You look at a lot of the states like Utah, everyone votes a certain way because the state is very religious, but then they vote for a guy that just played on the religion and votes completely opposite of what all of these people believe. So we just got to be smarter with our vote. And that's all I'm going to say on this topic. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, let me know what you got in the comments. I'm not perfect. If you think I'm an idiot, go ahead and say it. That's what the comments are for. The only time I delete a comment is if you want me to follow the link to go find my next wife or some Russian mail order bride. I will delete that comment. The hate comments, I let them stay. Don't care, don't lose an ounce of sleep over it. Subscribe if you are not already, guys. We got a ton of cool engine content coming up. And as always, I will catch y'all in the next one.